Hi again then guys, and so we've got another updated Le Mans prototype tune for you today, and this time it's for the prototype which is pretty unique. It ran in its own class in the Le Mans. It is of course the DeltaWing, and this version in particular is the 2013 version, which is of course the more powerful and quicker version. So you want your racing soft tyres. For your brakes, I would recommend increasing the rear brake bias to 6. For the suspension, we've got the springs down to 1225 on the rear, 550 on the front. For dampers, on compression we've got 1, 3 on extension, anti-roll as low as possible, camber and toe neutral. For the gearbox, we've got an auto setting of 230 as you can see. Then for the individual gears we've got 2.9, that should be on 1.8, I don't know why it wasn't. 1250, 950 and 700 with a final drive of 2.7. For the diff we've got the lowest initial torque, highest acceleration and braking on 20, and I would actually also recommend using that diff setup as a track car. It makes a world of difference to the handling. We've got the high RPM turbo of course, and as far as downforce, not actually as low as you can go on this car because it's a bit annoying as far as how its downforce works and the aerodynamics. If you pretty much go any lower than 1000, the handling starts to get bad and you don't actually gain any speed. So there's no point in going any lower than 1000 on this particular car. Traction control you want turned off, most certainly. And so this is a pretty unique car on GranTurismo in many ways. The most obvious being, of course, the looks of the car. It's pretty much the most aerodynamically efficient car in the game. The only rivals that this car would have in terms of real-life aerodynamics would be probably the Audi Streamliner, because that is of course a very aerodynamic car as well, but I haven't checked the figures, but I should imagine the DeltaWing is probably even more aerodynamic than that Audi. And just another little nerdy point that some of you guys may be interested in knowing, I'm not sure if it's the exact reason why they painted it chrome. I think there was two main reasons, but the 2012 DeltaWing of course experienced a mishap in the Le Mans where it got hit by a Toyota. And it was of course black, and the Toyota driver claimed that he couldn't see the DeltaWing because it's so small and because it was black. So they repainted it chrome so that nobody had that excuse. But another advantage, I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure if they did this deliberately or if it was just a happenstance, but another advantage that many people don't realise to having chrome paint on a car is if it is especially real chrome, but to some degree also chrome paint, as long as it's very highly polished, it actually increases the aerodynamics of the car. Now that may sound really weird and kind of made up, but believe me, it's actually true. It makes the car more aerodynamically efficient because the body is smoother. And likewise, cars that are matte painted are less aerodynamic because the air is rougher over the body. Now in the game, of course, the physics don't really include that as much as they should. But it is a fact. Now with this particular tune setup, it's got the car pretty well covered. As you can see, it handles perfectly on the curve. And this is one of the very few cars that I've ever tuned that actually prefers to be at the bottom of the corner instead of the top. It can drive at the top, but it by far prefers it down here, and the handling is so good. There are very few cars that can maintain pretty much the same top speed on the corner. Now the strangest thing about this car, as you'll have noticed on the other side of the track, it was struggling around 264. But notice on this side of the track, it's now going faster than that. Now there are very few vehicles that this happens to on GranTurismo, but this is arguably the main one. For some reason, and I think it must be something to do with the hill affecting the suspension setup and gear ratios of the car in an adverse way, that it goes faster on this side of the track than it does on the other side. On the other side of the track, it struggles to go past 264. On this side of the track, it does 268. And it's not just the speed. If you check the revs, they're completely different. And you can do that by looking at the steering wheel. The revs on this side of the track are higher than the max revs on the other side. And another interesting thing about this car, which unfortunately we're not allowed to use, is you'll notice that there's a button and also a meter on the steering wheel for the DRS system. It's kind of a shame that we don't get to actually use that DRS system to give us a bit of extra performance. like the Tomahawk does with its boost system that we can use with the NOS button. But overall, it's a pretty cool little car, this. As far as draft potential, you've got over 1,000 RPM, I'm glad to say. So it's got a lot more draft potential in comparison to many of the other prototypes. So you should be able to pretty easily, thanks to its aerodynamics, the low weight and the draft potential, draft this car up to, well, based on the revs, I should say at least 290, if not more. Now, as far as handling, I haven't tested it up to that speed, so you'll need to be careful. But as far as the corners, it takes them perfectly, and I mean perfectly. The handling is phenomenal on this machine. So, if you decide to use this tune, I hope you of course find it fun, and it's definitely a lot more competitive than how many people have it set up. And if you're new to the channel, or just found this helpful or interesting in general, feel free to subscribe. I put out new top speed tunes like this every day, and new updated tunes like this quite often as well. And as always, thanks for watching.